Hello and welcome. In this tutorial I want to show you how you can make this abstract quasar animation. So let's open this comp, and as you can see, not as much as you might think. First let's get to the string. So I have two P emitters. I'm merging them together, and both of them in the region have the mode Bezier, and I'm using Bezier to give them this wiggly path. Then I'm also coloring them, but in the end I decided to make it black and white, so that doesn't really matter, but if you want to you can take a look at what I did here. And then I also played with the size and size variance. I tried to make them different sized, so just to get a bit more variance between these two systems. And then I faded them to make the spawn and death animation of the particles smoother, so they don't pop in and out. And then we have the PE render. I enable pre-generate frames so that the particles are already spawned, so it's just like shifting the time in the particle simulation. Then I used a merge to double the particles. What I did here is I flipped it and I offset it a bit. Then I wanted to add some fog or some noise to them. So first I took some blurs and I used multiple blurs to give it this fade out. Because one blur looks a bit too linear, I wanted to have the core with a lot of noise and then the outer parts with lesser noise. And the way I did is just increase the blur size with each blur and then put the blend down. So yeah, this goes into the mask of the fast noise. And then I put an expression here to animate it going sideways. And then I gammaed that down to make it a bit darker and have these strains stand out a bit more. And then I put it over the particles again with a bit lower blend and screen blend mode. And then I put that on an image plane. I put the subdivisions up, so when I use the bender right here to bend it into a circle, it will look good. And then positioned it at the 0 point, so as you can see it's perfectly at 0, so that when I duplicate it and I scale it down, the pivot of the duplicate will be in the center of the circle. The number that I put in here is pi divided by 2 divided by 10. I just played around with numbers and then I thought, that looks kind of like half of pi, and because bending is a circle I thought maybe pi makes sense. Then I used rotation jitter. So these have a bit of rotation variation. Oh, and I also have transparency quicksort in the viewer enabled. For the core I just used a shape set to eco. Sphere would also work. I animated the scale to make it like zoom in and out randomly, because later with the glow this will give it kind of a flickering effect, because when the glow area, the bright area is growing, the glow will get brighter. So I'm using that to give the glow in the core some flicker. The string is just a shape set to cylinder with a really small radius and a tall height, so it's really long. I also animated the scale here to give it the same kind of flickering. Then I have a fast noise as the texture to give it some kind of energy movement animation. Then the renderer is just simple renderer 3D node with hardware renderer enabled, and I also enabled anti-aliasing. And as you can see, it plays back really nicely. Oh no, wait, I forgot something. The camera actually also has an animation with the use target. And then I used the Y to give it some animation. And I also tried to move it around, tried to find a good position. And then I made it black and white. And I put the gamma down a bit to make the midtones a bit darker. Then I used another fast noise. This one is set to gradient and then black and transparent. I overlaid that with overlay mode. It just adds a bit more randomness. And it's obviously not matching the movement, but because it's really subtle, I think it also works without being tracked into the scene. Then I used a color corrector, and then the tilt shift blur. You could also use vari blur for that. And the tilt shift blur works here because the focus or the center always stays in the middle, so I didn't have to worry about tracking it in. But technically I should do it in the renderer, but I was just too lazy and I think it looks good already. If we preview the depth map, we can see it's perfectly aligned to the center where I want the focus point to be. And then I just played with the blur strength and I put the anamorphism down to give it these streaky bokeh. I think it looks more cinematic. And then I added dream glow. And also this shape, the core shape, the material is set above 1, so it's a brightness of 2. So the dream glow mostly affects this one because dream glow has a threshold in it, and the threshold detects what parts are bright in the image and gives those parts the most glow. And lastly, some glint. So glint you can get from my free glow pack on my other channel. Glint basically just gives it some streaks. Yeah, this is what glint is doing. I thought this would fit with the stars, because stars also have these streaks, and it gives the core a bit more color variation. And yeah, that's basically it here. And then I put an adjustment clip on top, and I just added a film look creator. This is the studio node. I put the contrast up a bit, and halation I disabled, bloom as well, because we already added dream glow and glint, so I didn't want to have that twice. And then grain, Actually, I think I put up a bit in the final. And then what I also did in the final one is I enabled the film gate and I put it to 2.4 to 1. Then I also brought up the flicker and the gate weave, which is basically just a shake to give it some more attention and also give it the feeling that we are flying through space, like with an aircraft or something, or I don't know. And yeah, that's how you get this look. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.